families. And Father, for tonight, we ask your blessing upon this meeting as the very best is sought for our city. And Father, we pray that you would be honored and glorified as the faithful members of this council seek your face and desire to do what will bring an incredible blessing to the further future and development of our city. God, thank you for your love. And thank you for these men and women who you have faithfully entrusted to this office. And we ask your covering over them and over Virginia Beach now and these days to come. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
And before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could remain silent for a few moments to remember what is going on in Las Vegas, please. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do you have a motion for the certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
By Mrs. Tammy, I have your verbal.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
By a vote of 11-0, you have the closed session to be in accordance with the motion to recess.
Do you have a motion for approval of the minutes of September 19th, 2017?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for the question, please.
Mrs. Wilson abstaining, the vote is 10-0 to approve the minutes.
We'll now move to the consent agenda. And council, just for your information, I want to make sure that you note that item number 5F, the $900,605 from fund balance of the general fund to the fire department at Fort Story Fire Station, will be pulled. That will be pulled because there will be speakers. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval under the consent agenda, first under ordinances and resolutions. Item H, an ordinance to amend City Code Paragraph 2-3, Ray, member terms of the Board of Building Code Appeals. H2, resolution to confirm 2018 legislative agenda to the Virginia General Assembly as corrected. H3, resolution to provide design direction for the City Hall replacement. 4, ordinances to authorize temporary encroachments. A, Ray bulkhead maintenance and pier replacement at 5136 Overland Road, known as Kemp's Lake, District 2, Kempsville. And 4B, Ray Beach Landing maintenance at 4536 Ocean View Avenue, the Bayside District. And Madam Clerk, please note that the mayor is abstaining on that item.
Yes, Your Honor.
Item 5, which is ordinances to accept, appropriate, or transfer A, $800,000 to the Police Oceanfront Camera Project, Pacific Avenue. B, $15,000 from the Williams family to the Aquarium Foundation, Inc., Ray Coastal Conservation Garden and Outdoor Adventure Park. C, $155,000 to provide an interest-free loan to Plaza Volunteer Fire Company and Rescue Squad, Inc., Ray a new ambulance. D, $82,000 to provide an interest-free loan to Kempsville Rescue Squad, Inc., Ray a new ambulance. E, Virginia Task Force 2, Urban Search and Rescue Team 1, $1,501,013 from FEMA, Ray continued operation. 2, $1.4 million from FEMA, Ray mobilization to support Hurricane Irma operations. And 3, $400,000 from FEMA, Ray mobilization to support Hurricane Harvey operations. Planning.
Open a public hearing on planning.
Under planning for consent, item I2, which is the Grace Bible Church of Virginia Beach, Inc., and Mary H. Smith District, Princess Anne District, and that's for indefinite deferral,
Deferral to November 7th.
deferral to November 7th.
Yes.
Okay. For deferral to November the 7th. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
There is with an amendment. I want to make sure that the record reflects that I'm voting no on item 11 of the legislative package, which was added again late last week. That's the full expansion of Medicaid as provided by the Affordable Care Act. I don't believe this body possesses either the technical expertise nor have we engaged in a debate to tell the General Assembly how they should act on this matter.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? A call for the question, please.
By a vote of 11-0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by the Vice Mayor.
Mrs. Henley would like to give a comment on what we've been trying to do with the Grace Bible Church of Virginia Beach and the Mary H. Smith, which was on consent. Mrs. Henley.
Right, just so all the council members know what attempts have been made as well as the public. This property is on London Bridge Road. It's still a farm, the only one along there on that particular side of London Bridge Road. And it's surrounded pretty much by residential. However, it's in the high noise zone, 70 to 75 decibels. And now that it's coming forward for development, that's a problem because we don't allow, or the Navy doesn't want residential in properties that have this decibel level. The application, as it was first submitted, was for the Grace Bible Church to be a part of it, on the section of it, and then the section along London Bridge Road to be zoned commercial. That portion has been withdrawn, so that is gone. However, as I see this is going to leave a problem property because this strip of property along London Bridge Road will still be agricultural, and at some point, it's going to need to obviously be another use, but it's going to be difficult to find the right use for that property. Such things as being incompatible with the residential that's around, difficulty in accessing off London Bridge Road because that's a pretty difficult road to, we don't want a lot more curb cuts on there. And so we're going to have this problem property, plus it's going to have to be maintained until that time. So the city attorney and others have been working to try to see if there was another way we could deal with this. And it just seems to me that this property simply fallen through the cracks in those things that were offered to properties to make the properties whole while conforming to the needs of Oceana in not having residential in their high noise zones. And we have been very cooperative in doing that too. If this property had been just a little farther up London Bridge Road, it would have qualified to be in sub-area 2, and then could have had residential as long as it didn't exceed other adjoining residential properties. But where it is, it's not in sub-area 2 or eligible for that use. If it had been a bit to the west, it would have been in the ITA and would have been eligible to have been acquired to keep residential out of that noise level. And so this property owner is sitting there with 70, 75 decibel property, is very limited in what it can do. And because of the surrounding neighborhood, there's a big compatibility problem. They've been looking to see if there was any way we could have it come under one of these existing programs, and the answer that we've gotten is no. So I just wanted you all to know what we've been trying to do. So at this point, the application for the church will come back to us November 7th. I was just really hoping for a miracle of some kind, that there would be a good way to resolve the balance of this property, but we'll see.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley, and you, along with the city attorney and the planning department, have made a gallant effort, but it appears like we're not going to have a good solution. Before we go to speakers, I want to remind everyone that the city council speaker policy that allows certain representatives or groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items at items where a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. We will now go to item number 5F, the $900,605 from the fund balance of the general fund to the fire department at Fort Story Fire Station. Call the speakers, please.
Thomas Welch.
We welcome you today, sir.
Thank you, sir. I have some handouts for the city council members.
Give it to the clerk, please.
Clerk.
Good evening, Mayor Sessoms, Vice Mayor Jones, and city council members. I come here tonight as a Virginia Beach resident. My name is Timothy Welsh. I also come as a president of IFF Local F25, Tidewater Federal Firefighters. I'd like to discuss the requested place of Virginia Beach engine in station number 30 aboard Navy Base JEB Little Creek, Fort Story. Tidewater Federal Firefighters represents the Navy bases in Hampton Roads from Dam Neck to the Naval Weapons Station in Yorktown. All these fire departments on these installations not only cover the base, but we support our brothers and sisters in our surrounding municipalities through mutual aid agreements and some as automatic aid, where we are automatically dispatched with the city units. That is the case of here at Fort Story with Engine 18, is automatically dispatched to any residential or commercial fire throughout the city, through the city dispatch system. In the last 365 days, Navy Engine 18 was dispatched 44 times out of the 600 and some odd calls Chief Hutchinson reported last week. Of those 44 calls, 28 times Navy response was canceled prior to arriving on scene. I don't know the specific details on who, what, or why. I just know these are the numbers. With those numbers in mind, I am concerned as a taxpayer of whether it is worth the additional tax burden to the residents of Virginia Beach for 44 reported structure fires when the Navy response is available. Last week, Chief Hutchinson stated in his proposal that the engine would bring reduced response times, but he also stated that the fire on 72nd Street in 2015, our Navy engine was on scene in under 4 minutes. Another bullet the chief pointed out was improved reliability, but I ask you this: what will happen when the base goes to a force protection level that closes the gates and the engine can't get off the base? The ISO rating was also discussed and said to be at a 10 at the north end. The 2015 ISO report shows Virginia Beach is receiving an ISO rating of 2 and a 5, and a 10 for locations outside of a 5-mile driving distance from a current firehouse. Currently using 83rd Street as the median, Station 1 on Shore Drive is 4.4 miles, and Station 11 on Virginia Beach Boulevard is 4.9 miles. We provided a map detailing the 5-mile radius of both of those stations. Lastly, I want to discuss the legality of the issue. U.S. Code Title 10, Section 2465, which I have provided copies for you, clearly states that the contracting out of federal firefighting jobs on CONUS is illegal. While that has not been discussed by members, my members are concerned that the writing is on the wall. If you vote to move this engine into our station, we stand to lose our jobs and the 12 firefighters currently assigned there. We are here tonight only because of their jobs concerns, but to add some perspective to the situation. So I ask you to table this vote until such a time the city is able to find the right property to put a fire station on the city. You should also know that Station 30 is a sick building. We've been trying to address the mold and air quality issues in the station for quite some time.
Thank you very much for your comments. We've run out of time.
Thank you. Thank you
Cover
for
that.
your service, guys.
Next speaker.
Harold Harper.
We welcome you today, sir.
Council members, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Harold Harper. I'm a citizen of the city of Virginia Beach. I'm also a retired federal firefighter and I'm a member of IAFF Local F25. I would like to echo the sentiments of Mr. Welsh and what he just spoke to you about in regards to the 4-story fire station. This is a fire station that is fully staffed by trained, professional federal firefighters. The possibility of moving a city fire engine into our fire station could be detrimental to our personnel, and Mr. Welsh touched on the fact it could eliminate jobs down the road. I would feel there could be a better use of $900,000 within this city as opposed to trying to staff a city fire engine on a federal installation. I thank you for your time this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
I'd like to ask, excuse me, we have Deputy Chiefs Cooper and Ramsey here from the fire department, and I had a discussion with Chief Cooper about this earlier today, because this is in my district, and I'll tell you, since I've been on council in 2002, we had that document from HBA that talked about all the fire stations and what we needed and everything, and the North End has been on that list for at least 15 years that I'm aware of. But there's a difference in the statistics that the gentleman from the Federal Firefighters Union said versus what I've heard from Chief Cooper. So if I could call him up just to address some of these things,
Yeah,
or Chief
Chief,
Ramsey, whoever.
I welcome you coming up. I think I'm speaking for the council. I think last week we were feeling this was a very good move for our city. I think we felt there would be a good partnership, and I think we also were told the building's in pretty good shape. So we need some guidance here, please.
Yes, sir. What we know is this, is last year in 2016, Company 11 and Company 1, which responds to this area, both first due and his second due, ran over 7,000 calls in 2016. If we had had a engine in Fort Story, that's all calls. You heard them gentlemen from Fort Story Federal Fire Department talk about, they respond on structure fires. That's it. There's a lot more calls that happen in the city of Virginia Beach that you guys expect response on. Ran over 7,000 calls. Had we had a fire engine in Fort Story, we'd have run over 2,700 calls in that area, either first due or second due. That's probably one of the biggest things for you guys. They do not do automatic aid, they do mutual aid. What that means to you guys is, if they're down for training, if they're down for staffing, if they're not there for any particular reason, they do not backfill that station to respond to our city, primarily North End or anywhere outside of that. If we were staffing a fire truck out of there, we do that. We do that in Creeds, we do that in Blackwater, we do that in Green Run, we do that across the city. If we're gonna staff, if we're going to send a fire truck that's normally staffed somewhere to training or vacate it, unless there's a giant incident requiring a bunch of stuff, we're backfilling that so the citizens still have their coverage. As far as the building being a sick building or not, we met over there with them. They were showing us how they did have a problem in that building. The concrete floor, the roof, and the air conditioning units. It is my understanding they've addressed the floor problem already. They've addressed the roof problem. And this month, I believe they get their new money, and they're also going to address the chillers that were leaking in the overhead. They don't want their firefighters living in a sick building. We don't want our firefighters living in a sick building. And we've been reassured by the CO and the base fire chief over there that those three issues are being addressed.
And I think one issue, I can speak for the entire council, is certainly not our intent to fully staff that station at all. It's not one bit of our interest in trying to take a job from anyone at that facility, and I'm speaking for all. Shannon?
I have a question. I don't recall in Chief Hutchinson's report last week to us, but they mentioned what happens if the gate is on lockdown and we can't get the trucks off base. I mean, obviously, we've thought about that. What's the process there?
So we actually had a meeting on Monday with their public works people that would help us figure out the issues of livability and how to be there. And they were kind of scratching their head like, hey, what happens here? I suspect it would be the same way it is today. We respond on base, they respond off base. If for some reason there was a reason the base CO had to shut the base down, I'm hopeful they would let us off the base to get off to be able to still run calls in our own city and have our resource back. But if not, I'm betting they would be able to find a circumstance and a time frame to allow that to occur. I cannot imagine it being there for any longer than a day, a 24-hour shift. If we can't get on base, that's a reason that they've established that we can't get on base. We can't get on base today with the circumstances.
Thank you,
Does
thank
that-
you, Jim, for having the chief come over.
You
Very
said you were
informative.
hopeful.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there was a contract or something in writing that says we will allow you on and off the base. Being hopeful is not necessarily
That's what
comforting.
that's what we're working on right now, is we're in discussions with them to craft up the language on how this agreement would work, whether it's an extension of an MOU, whether it's a licensing agreement, whether it's something else crafted up. They're not quite sure how to do that. Now that we have presented it to you guys and y'all have originally in concept thought it was a good idea, we moved forward with meeting with Public Works and their real estate office to help address that very issue that you're talking about and how we would live there. We have to give them a letter telling them this is how many people will live here, here's what they need to live here, here's any environmental impacts that we would have if we moved in, like say diesel smoke that comes off the fire truck that goes into the building. We would address that through the Plymouth vent or the no smoke system, which is the exact same thing they use. I've already talked to our fleet management. They have no problems addressing that concern. So we are in the phase of doing exactly what you asked, Ms. Keenan, as addressing the legalities of what happens if the base commander does shut the base down.
Thank you very much, Jim. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor.
As far as the response is concerned, Chief, right now, you don't have anybody there.
Correct.
So you are now covering it from the stations that you currently have, and you feel that having our people and a truck there improves the amount of service that you can give to the community in Virginia.
In two ways, Mr. Jones. The first way is that our fire truck that would be housed jointly with them is primary responsibility to the city of Virginia Beach, and it would always be there and able to respond on any of those calls. Secondly, as we talked about last week, is if we do have a fire in those large structures that are down there, we are running jointly with the base in there with 2 units that allow us to put 8 people on the scene of rapidly moving large structure fires. And what you need is you need quick response for rescue, water supply, and fire attack. And that's what it does with 2 units. This is jointly responding with them. It increases our capability by using both resources if they happen to be available for
And
us.
so, except for the possible situation where the base is closed down, any other time during the year, your response would be enhanced. Is that correct?
That is definitely accurate.
Thank you.
Rosemary.
So this pretty much gives you the green light to move forward with working out all the details of everybody working together. So once you have that done, will you come back and let us know
You bet, Ms.
how
Wilson.
everything's going to work out?
Other questions or comments? Do I have a motion, Mr. Wood?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First off, thank you very much, Chief Cooper, for your assistance. I'll tell you, that, as I said, this has been something that I know for at least 15 years has been a need that the fire department's identified. I think we all
I think
agree.
it's 4 to 15, Mr. Wood.
But I mean, it's been in writing for at least 15 years. I think there's every single person here on council realizes that we're not going to find the acreage at the north end for any kind of even remotely reasonable price to put a fire station. I certainly respect what the gentleman from the professional, or the Federal Professional Firefighters Association, and I'll be the first one to tell y'all, I don't want to replace you, and I don't think we want to replace you. We don't, that's not our business, and we don't need to do that. But what I will tell you is that we do have an exceptionally good relationship with the Navy, whether it's at JEB Fort Story Little Creek, whether it's at Oceana, whether it's at Dam Neck, anywhere. We have an exceptionally good relationship with the Navy, and I think that this certainly would be, would certainly further the relationship. And frankly, I think the 2 different departments can work together, can learn from each other, the best practices from either department, and everybody can work well together. So saying that, I would move that we approve item 5F, the $900,605 from the fund balance general fund to the fire department at Fort Story Fire Station.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I got a lot of seconds. Any discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
Mr. Moss abstaining, the vote is 10-0.
John, please.
I'd like to explain my extension. As many people may know, I'm employed by the Department of Defense. The city manager was not able to provide me the details of what the agreement might be to enable me to secure an opinion from the Office of Special Counsel to the President, and therefore taking the
avoid any appearance of conflict of interest, which is a high standard, which I know my federal employees know, I'm abstaining from this vote.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Call for the question, please. Oh, we already called.
we already
did. I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to planning now. The Enclave at PABC LLC, District 7, Princess Anne. Are there any speakers?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then Barbara, if you would make your comments, please.
Right. Since there's no opposition, but I just have to clarify, because I will not be supporting it as the district representative. This is Phase 2 of a project. Phase 1 was approved a few years ago, and I voted against it. And in order to vote for Phase 2, I said, well, they're going to have to do something that improves the situation for which I voted against it in Phase 1. And so I was looking to see if there was going to be some improvement, and I don't find it. Phase 1, as you remember, this is a property that is just down North Landing Road from here. It's borderline in the ITA. If it was in the ITA, the interfacility traffic area, which is high noise zone, there can be no residential. Well, the line for the high noise zone goes right through the property of Phase 1, right through the property. So if you happen to be on one side of that imaginary line, there could be no residential. On the other side, there could be residential. So what they did was they scrunched all of the houses up in that southeast corner. I think that's the right direction, so that they would be out of the high noise zone. Therefore, it had to be zoned PDH2 to allow the lots to get small enough to do that. So it was zoned R7.5, but the lots are built at 5,000 square feet, very close together, so that they could get the housing of 34 lots out of the high noise zone into that area where housing would be allowed. Then another issue that I just have a lot of trouble with is that original piece of property is actually a flag lot off of North Landing Road, which is a two-lane road, and it's going to always be a two-lane road. There's no plan to widen it. Now, the access to this initial phase of 34 lots is off North Landing Road. One up the flag, until Nemo Parkway is extended the distance to what will be their access off North Landing Nemo Parkway. At that time, they agreed that they would close the access from North Landing and have the access on Nemo Parkway. Nemo Parkway, of course, will be a 4-lane divided highway at some time in the future when it's built. Then there are other issues too. I really worry about the drainage in that area, but those two were the main issues. And that was a 16.87 acre parcel that has now 34 lots on 34 houses on 5,000 square foot lots, very dense. This second phase will add 5.36 acres and another 17 houses. All of this, of course, will adjoin the Veterans Care Facility, which is, of course, yet to be built, and I don't even think we have seen the plan for it. And so this whole idea of how it's going to coincide with that and what the drainage will be is out there and a bit unknown. But I'm looking to see, does this addition of this 5 acres and 17 lots improve the situation or not? Well, this 5 acres is also being zoned PDH2, R7.5 with a PDH2 overlay. Well, normally we would allow PDH2 if we're clustering to get some open space. Well, I think this is the same zoning as the first, just because it's the same zoning as the first. There's no additional open space here, no real reason to cluster. I think the open space are the two BMPs and a tot lot. So we're allowing another 17 houses on 5,000 square feet in this area with no additional open space. But then I thought, well, if they would extend Nemo Parkway from where the city is going to extend it to the entrance of the Veterans Care Facility, that short distance to where the entrance would be to this property, so that this property could access Nemo Parkway instead of now having 51 houses coming in and going out on North Landing Road, which is treacherous, then maybe it would improve it enough that I could vote for it, but they're not doing that. So now we're going to have 51 houses for the foreseeable future with just access in and out on North Landing Road without even a turn lane. And it's a very busy road. I know the numbers say it's okay, but I can tell you, when I visited the site, I had to wait a good long while in the middle of the afternoon to be able to get onto North Landing Road safely. I don't think it's a safe situation. And then again, there's the drainage issue, which I worry about, because that's the question people have been asking me about the Veterans Care Facility. So for these reasons, I simply can't make what I thought was a bad development, a good development by adding to it. So I'm going to be voting against it.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Oh, yes, sir.
I'm not coming up to get an argument. We have made a clerical error. I'm responsible. My secretary messed up. It's not anything that's not solvable. Are you going to pass out? They've been passed out. In your package, the proffers, we added a proffer that I think is, everyone agrees, a good proffer, that we can't build the road, but we have agreed to put in the multipurpose trail in front of to connect and through the VA, in front of the VA hospital. That's been added, but unfortunately, when we sent that down, we added it to an earlier proffer. That when we went to the Planning Commission in June, before July, we reduced it to 17 lots from 19 lots. So what's in front of you is exactly what the Planning Commission recommended, and with the one addition. What was in your package was an earlier proffer of 19 houses, which is not the plan. It's not the plan that's before you. It's not the plan that the Planning Commission recommended. It's a clerical error on our part, but there's nothing that's changed in here other than the multipurpose trail. But I wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Does that help you at all, Mrs. Hill?
And 17.
No, it's
Seven-
And
the cars
17,
are
no,
still going to be in. It's 17
Yeah.
lots. I misspoke. The cars are still going to be in and off of North Landing Road, which is a very dangerous road.
I mean, I'm happy.
I did ask the, not a question for you.
Okay.
I did ask the city manager to provide me detailed drainage information, just that when they model it, and I got that, just to see how that works. And I did ask him in the future, I think we're going to have to figure out a way to put in the planning packages so that the council members can see and the public can see how that modeling works, and we'll see how good the analysis is when real life shows up. But this reminds me of 2 weeks ago. Different part of the city, 52 single-family homes could have gone somewhere, and instead we put 252 apartments. Density, no open space, a lot of traffic, pushed it over the volume of the road. And so while I have a lot of sympathy and would share Ms. Henley's vote, but I just think we have to be somehow consistent, and somehow we were more than willing to jam up 252 houses on Virginia Wesleyan Drive that was already overloaded and putting a lot of, but no one give a second thought, no open space, none of those standards seem to apply. So I'm just trying to be consistent with what just happened 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, I could support her.
I do have a motion from Mr. Davenport. I didn't
Motion
hear-
to approve with the new proffer.
Right, I didn't have a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wood. Any other discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
By a vote of 9-2, you have approved the application recognizing the correction for the proffer.
Very good. Thank you all. Now, I will now move to appointments, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to nominate the Board of Building Code Appeals, Mr. Michael W. Schoolery, to the Green Ribbon Committee for a 3-year period, William Allman, Robert Verdon, Christy Everett, Wayne McCoy, and Emily Steinhilber.
Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll call for the question, please.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you have made the appointments, 11 to 0, you have made the appointments noted by the Vice Mayor.
Do we have any unfinished business? Do we have any new business? We'll adjourn this meeting, then we'll go into open mic. If y'all would tell me when we can begin open mic, please.